What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Standard Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. A little different for us, Levin. You're here. You're in front of me. I can see you. We have met in person for the first time.
Yeah, I don't know if I like it yet. I'm not used to it. Making actual eye contact with you is a little awkward because I'm not used to that. But I can almost reach out and touch you.
Yeah, let's not do that. We've got a little bit of interesting news today about the practice fields with the 49ers. We're going to get into that. We'll get into I got to tell some people about what it's like to meet you in person. I'm already a little disappointed. We'll get into that. But before we do,
hey, I warned you. I already know what you're going to say.
Yeah,
I'm much more dumbed down in person.
That is not what I'm going to say. I'm going to tell everybody how you're a big jerk, but we'll get to that. But before we do,
they know that. That's not any different.
Yeah, that's true. Quick note here about our YouTube partners, Community Tree Service. We love having them as partners. We're so thrilled, and they will take care of your yard. If you need land trimming, you need hazard tree removal, home fire hardening, debris removal from the Central Coast up to the Bay Area. There's so much more pressure when you're here live. I feel like I can't stumble at all. They will take care of you. And estimates are free. So call 831-763-2391 or email estimating@cts831.com or visit their website at communitytree.com to schedule an appointment. Mention you're a Niners fan. You get $200 off of your quote. If you root for the Chiefs, they will not come to your house. In fact, they'll probably leave some garbage in your yard. So don't do that. And Community Tree Service is licensed by the California State License Board, license number 1100816. All right.
Before we get into it, I got to ask an important question because I just noticed something. You were here. You had the room to yourself.
Right.
You had the entire Vegas cuisine at your disposal last night. And yet I see a cup there from Subway.
Yep. That's right. I went to Subway for dinner last night. Very glamorous. Let me tell you, this life on the road. And I saved my receipt, too. I'm going to expense it.
Well, yeah.
To myself.
Yeah, exactly. What's your go-to sub?
Subway Club.
You would.
What's wrong with the Subway Club?
There's nothing exciting about it.
Hey, I'm not worried about exciting. I'm worried about delicious.
Hey, Subway, sponsor us.
Yeah, we'll take your money, Subway. We'll take anybody's money at this point. Okay. So I had a little adventure before you got here. Went down to Radio Row. Now, we did not get a table at Radio Row. I always say in this show, you never get 100% accuracy, but you're going to get 100% honesty. So I'm just going to be honest with people, okay? We applied for a credential. The NFL denied us. When the Niners got into the Super Bowl, I reapplied for a credential. They denied us again. I argued back and forth with the NFL. Finally, they said, okay, we'll give you a credential, but we're not going to give you a table on Radio Row. Now, everybody that's listening, or most people that's listening, know I've covered Super Bowls before. I've covered about 7 Super Bowls in the past, and I've been on Radio Row. And I know there are always extra tables on Radio Row that are not used by anybody. So I figured I will use one of the extra tables. Went down today, set up, was all set to Ahmed Fareed from NBC was supposed to come by. We were supposed to have a little chat, and the NFL came over and said, get out of here. This is an extra table. You can't have it. And I said, but you said it was extra. And they were like, get out of here. And I got the impression that if I didn't leave, that they would have pulled our credentials entirely. So we can still go to Radio Row. We're still going to media night tonight. But things are going to look and sound a little different. Some of the interviews that we have set up, we're still going to try and do some things with Drew Brees and Michael Jr. and Mina Kimes and stuff like that. But it's going to be budget, let's say. But so that's what's going on. That's why we're so delayed in getting live to everybody.
Can I just say, can you not get us banned before I get my press pass?
Yeah.
I still have to go get that. I at least want the thing that proves, hey, I had my picture on a press pass for the Super Bowl,
Yes, that's totally fine. And look, I admit,
I'm going to email that guy back and say, hey, I'm with him, but if you ban him, please don't ban me.
I'm with him, but I'm not with him. Look, we were technically in the wrong because they didn't give us a table, but he even said the table was extra. Like no one used the table. And so I'm a little frustrated by that, but it is what it is anyway.
Should have been approved in the first place, but
that's a whole different issue. So we have met now, obviously. We're in the same room. That's really cool. I go down to the lobby to meet Levin because he needs a key to get into the elevator. And I had his key, so I went down to meet him.
You could have held it ransom, by the way.
He walks up, no extension of the hand for the handshake, no hug, no indication in any way that, hey, I've been working with this person for years, and we have finally met in the same place at the same time. And it was like, I might as well have been on a Zoom. That's what it was like. And I reached out to give you a hug, and you gave me one of those side hugs, like someone you don't even really want to be associating with.
Yeah, so I'm not a touchy-feely guy. I know, hard to imagine. My mother-in-law has to like fight to get a hug from me. I'm not a hugger. I don't like I'll give somebody a hug. I just always feels awkward to me. Even my own mother feels awkward hugging. I'm not a touchy-feely, like I said. Handshake. Yeah, I was expecting the handshake, but then I don't know, we were chatting. My hands were full with luggage, and by the time I finished getting the luggage stopped, you were coming in for an awkward half hug.
It was an awkward half hug, and it was my half. I was the only
Yeah.
half of the hug. Let me just say that. You wanted no part of it. So, okay, that's where we are. All right.
Do you want to shake my hand?
Well, not now. It's weird now.
Ah, see, now I extended an olive branch,
Yeah,
and you just snapped it.
that's right. You get
You're
one.
Italian, and you're snapping an olive branch.
You get one chance with me, and you blew it. All right. So now you're lucky we're going to sleep in the same room. Which, by the way, little weird. Never met Levin in person before, and now we're living together for a week.
I guess it's not that awkward to me. I had jobs where we were staying in man camps, as they called them. So it would be like you're on the road. They weren't really hotels. They were sometimes, if you're lucky, it was a hotel, but normally it was just like a set of trailers that some company had put up. And yeah, you would literally be like rooming with other
Random.
men that you only like you worked with, but that's the only time you saw them. So yeah, it's not that uncommon to me. Plus, like I had to room with teammates, stuff like that. So
All
I
right.
guess
Well, it's
I'm
weird for me.
experienced in the rooming with random men.
Well, I just want you to know I've gone out of my way to keep the room clean and nice looking. And, I'm a very courteous roommate. So you'll find out. But anyway, we got a little bit of news already,
We're gonna have to
Levin.
get your wife on to see if that's true.
Yeah, well, good luck. We got a little bit of news because the Niners are not happy with the practice field situation. And for anybody that doesn't know, the Niners are practicing at UNLV, which is outside. The Chiefs are practicing at the Raiders training facility, which is inside. Okay, whatever. You can't both practice at the same facility, so somebody's got to be
At least the weather
there.
is perfect.
Right,
Know?
it's
nice.
pouring right now in the desert.
It's supposed
by
to
the
pour
way.
for the next 2 days too.
We can't escape the rain. The 49ers cannot escape the rain. At least the game will be all set. But apparently, there's some irregularities with the field. First of all, I'm going to say this sentence out loud, and you tell me if this sounds like a normal thing to do. The field at UNLV is turf. Obviously, the 49ers didn't want to practice on turf. So what the NFL decided to do was take a sod field and put it on top of the turf. So that's what they did. Now, normally, practice fields are supposed to meet certain standards in December, but apparently, and I'm not making this up, I'm reading this from the Adam Schefter story, they just started laying the sod last week. So
reminds me of Levi Stadium when it first came on.
Right. And more from the story now. The hardness score for fields averages 78, with no field being less than 70. According to this story from Adam Schefter, the 49ers field is considered in the 50s, sources told them. The 50s. This is the field the 49ers are practicing on for a week before the Super Bowl, Levin.
Yeah. It's odd to me that they would allow one team an indoor practice facility and the other team outdoor. Like that to me, like that should be one of the things that's like required. If you want to host a Super Bowl, your city has to have the capability of having a equal practice setup. It might not be the exact same field, you can't share fields and all that stuff, but it's either you're both outdoors or you're both indoors. If there's not a second indoor facility for one team, then the other team should be forced to be outside as well. That it's odd to me. And the weather this week, I think that will be something that the 49ers have to deal with because they have to practice outside in the rain. There's things you can't do. Like we've seen before that Kyle doesn't like to practice when it's bad weather.
Right.
So are they going to have less practice this week?
I don't know. Their first walkthrough, I think, is today.
Yeah.
So, and obviously we're going to media night. They're going to get asked about it. I'll ask about it because we're going to be able to ask questions to whoever we want out there. I'm stunned. And of course, the NFL inspected it, and surprise, surprise, they improved it.
Yeah.
They always approve it. I just think it's such a weak look. A year after the biggest story coming out of the Super Bowl was the field, right? The Eagles were talking about the field, how bad the field was and how slippery it was. And it was terrible surface. And we go into practice at this year's Super Bowl and the field is miserable because they put grass on top of turf. And now we're all surprised that it's not working out. And they only started laying it a week ago. Like what?
Yeah, this is a case of, it's UNLV. This is actually a newer practice facility from what I read. But they went with turf. That's something that when the Raiders put in their bid to be able to host the Super Bowl, that should have been figured out then. That if you host the Super Bowl, you're going to have to spend $1 million or $2 million upgrading UNLV's facilities for them. We can work it as a PR angle, all that. But the Raiders, in order to host the Super Bowl and get that huge windfall of money that the team gets, you're going to have to pay for the local university to get a little bit better facility so that you have both. Like that's the answer. Why was this not done? Like that's years ago they could have done this.
Because they don't care.
Exactly. They don't care until there's an actual team there. All the other teams go, well, I'm not worried about it because it's not us. Until they make the Super Bowl, then they go, hold on, I'm not putting my players on that field. Because if it was some other team that had made the Super Bowl, then it would be that team fighting the battle and complaining. And that's just like a lack of foresight by the NFL at large. Like what needs to happen, clearly the owners of the NFL are not going to fix this problem.
No.
The players complaining about it is not enough because they've been complaining about it for a long time. This has been a topic of conversation pretty much since you and I started watching football in the early 2000s. They were talking about AstroTurf, and they managed to get AstroTurf out, but then they came in with a secondary turf that's better, but not still the level
Field
of grass.
turf.
Right. What needs to happen is the coaches need to get involved. Pick a side. The coaches are quiet. They only complain when it's their team that's about to have to play on it. They don't complain leading up. They don't continually make it a topic of conversation. And they're the middleman in this because they're employed by the owner, but they coach the players. They need the players to believe in them and all that and be motivated by them. They need to come to the player side. I think if you have coaches and players saying this is ridiculous, we should have zero turf, it would get changed.
So I'm just checking Twitter now, which I feel like a bigger jerk doing when you're sitting next to me while you're talking, as opposed to just doing it from home.
I know when you're checking.
Matt Barrows tweeted, the Niners are currently at UNLV inspecting the squishier than expected practice fields. And he tweeted this about 10 minutes ago. Their choices seem to be 1, stand pat and practice there, or 2, use the Raiders facility that the Chiefs are already using, which would alter the weekly schedule. Because that's what you want. You want to completely throw out the weekly schedule. I mean, like, what are we?
And it's not going to get any better. Like we said, it's rained for the next 2 days.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I know it was probably raining for you when you got in last night, although you got here a little early.
It was raining.
So I just got in an hour ago. They were literally driving through flooded streets, and it's not raining like crazy hard.
Yeah.
It's just a consistent level of rain. It's not sprinkling, but it's not pouring. It's just that in between regular rain. But literally the streets are flooded here. And I asked him, like, is this normal? And he said, yeah, anytime they get a little bit of rain.
It's because it's the desert.
He said it's the desert, and they haven't upgraded their sewer systems, and they're too old, and they're not able to keep up.
Well, I'm sure that won't be a problem in the future.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the NBC Sports report on this. One, it said that the fields were likened to, quote, a sponge when reporting to team officials. One source said scores are assigned to fields. Yeah, we already know that. The Niners practice field scored between a 48 to 50 on that hardness scale. One source said there was no base put down between the artificial surface and the layer of sod. Okay.
Like
literally.
Like I have worked for an organization that had, like, the people that control the grass and the fields or the courts from back in my intern days. There are people who are like the expert of that are employed by the team. Where was that expert?
Well, wasn't
like that? If I'm the Niners, I'm sending my field guy expert because there is a guy that's like literally in charge. He's
the
top
groundskeeper.
person. Yeah, well, probably a different title, but
essentially,
yes. But he literally will have like a huge staff at the NFL level. You're going to have a huge staff under you. This is like the top of the line. The guy knows his grass, as the character of Snoop Dogg said in Starsky and Hutch. But why wasn't that guy over here saying, hey, you need a base layer in between? You know what I mean? And I'm not blaming that guy. It's just, to me, why wasn't there an expert in charge of this? This is too important.
Apparently not. Wasn't that the issue at Levi's too? Was it the base level was the issue that caused them?
Well,
whatever.
they changed grass a couple times too.
Yeah. And so this says there are noticeable seams in the field where the sections of sod connect, according to a source. The Niners are likely upset the fields were not installed sooner. You could just remove likely from that.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Niners are furious.
This is going to be the topic of conversation tonight.
Yes. This is
because media night is kind of like, it's not a normal interview atmosphere, because there is a little bit more fun. There's a little bit more joking around. It's not like a strict press conference. I'm here to answer questions about the game. You know what I mean? There's that aspect that's serious, but you know, you get the players bring their families up sometimes, and they kind of horse around a little bit. It's a little more lighthearted.
right.
This has the chance of derailing that from, because the NFL, I'm sure they want it more lighthearted, because that shows their personality. That's better for TV, all that. This might end up making it a, you know, more of a normal press conference where it's all business.
So I'm just reading the article here.
I can tell.
The details of this thing are crazy. One source familiar with the situation said the scheduled practice facilities for the Niners and Chiefs are, quote, inequitable leading up to the Super Bowl and could create a competitive advantage for the Chiefs. They could practice together, like we said, blah, blah, blah. The Niners are familiar with the Raiders setup. Okay, here we go. The Niners began discussing their options for their practice site with the NFL. At one point, it was even considered a possibility that the club could take part in opening night on Monday at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, then travel back to the Bay Area and practice in Santa Clara. Now it appears the Niners' options are to stick with the unfavorable conditions or change their normal routine to practice around the Chiefs' schedule. So that's where we are. It's basically rearrange the entire schedule that, by the way, I'm sure they spent a considerable amount of time.
It does matter. Like, players have routine.
And now it's this, because the NFL can't get their stuff together. Think about like how hard these players work and everything they have gone through to get there. And now you're telling me at the Super Bowl, their practice is going to be a completely mishmash hodgepodge because the NFL decided to install grass on top of turf and do it a week ago.
Can you imagine the workload? This is kind of the secondary part of it, but the workload of the security team is going to have.
Oh my God.
Because guess what? You're going into a practice facility that the Chiefs are in. So that security personnel is going to have to go through and make sure there's no hidden cameras.
Well,
and then when the Niners leave, the Chiefs security team is going to come in and try to confirm there's no cameras hidden anywhere.
So here's an interesting part. Like, we're going to do media night, opening night. The biggest media session of the Super Bowl is going to happen in a few hours. How do the Niners play this, right? Let's say you're Kyle Shanahan, you're furious. You can come out and rip everybody, rip Goodell, rip the NFL, blah, blah, blah. But like, is the league going to be happy? Is the league going to tell the officials, hey, if it's close, give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt because this guy was ripping it? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you got to think about that stuff, don't you?
I would imagine the team's not going to hold back too much. They'll hold back enough, but I don't think they're going to be like, it's really not that big of a deal. They're not going to try to blow it off and then behind the scenes be, MFing about it. I think they're going to come out and say that this is ridiculous. This is a Super Bowl. Every team should have an equal chance to practice. And the players are going to say, we don't want to get hurt before the biggest game of our lives.
Right.
That's going to be the tone, I think.
Well, see, there's only one member of the 49ers organization that can raise hell, and that's Jed York. This is an ownership problem now.
He's the only one that can raise hell and actually maybe make a difference.
Well, yeah. But this is where ownership has, like, if this happened to Jerry Jones, Jones would go scorched earth.
Yeah.
It's risen to that level now. And it'll be interesting to see if Jed handles it, how he handles it. But like, I'm sure Kyle's got to address with the team, like, how much are we going to talk about this? What are we going to say? That's going to be a thing. And maybe he just tells them to stick to the, but it's not even like, well, both teams have to play on it because both teams don't have to play on it. So it's worse than this. I already hear the Eagles fans saying, oh, what are you complaining about the field? This is different. It's not the same field for the Chiefs. They should make the Chiefs have to practice at UNLV.
Yeah, go flip a coin or alternate days, maybe.
I mean,
I don't know, but Kyle's a message to the team. He can't make it a big deal in front of them. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
In his press conference, he can, but to them, he's got to say, look, we're going to make the best of a bad situation, and it's not going to freaking matter because we're still going to go out there and beat their beat their butts. That's what his message needs to be, because they can't be dwelling on it going, oh,
Right.
we're not going to be prepared like we should be, because then that gets in their heads and stuff like that.
It's just like, how many times have we seen the 49ers come out and not be sharp, right? Well, how sharp are you going to be if you can't do regular actual practices because you're worried
Jake
about
Moody can't get practice kicks.
Why don't they? Yeah, like, can they let them practice on the Allegiant field, on the actual Super Bowl
They
field?
will not risk that field surface.
Oh yeah, they're really concerned about it.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, if you practice on it all week, it might get some damage to it. And then if that rears its head in the game, that's the biggest PR nightmare they could possibly have.
Yeah.
Now, I would guess the Chiefs would complain and say, hey, that's an unfair advantage. But then that kind of falls on deaf ears this time, because it's,
Right.
oh, so you want the unfair advantage of practicing indoors. But when the Niners are offered the chance to practice in Allegiant Stadium, suddenly can't have an unfair advantage.
Chase Sr. just tweeted, back-to-back years, the NFL is trying to neutralize a team with a good pass rush against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Sad.
Got a point.
Hopefully going to be catching up with Chase in about an hour from now from Radio Row, assuming our equipment works, which we'll see.
And they were allowed in the doors still.
Yeah, that's also true. We had to rearrange stuff on the
go
fly.
Get a media pass and be like, yeah, it's been revoked.
So that's a non-zero possibility. I'll say that. So we're going to go do that. We're going to get Levin's press pass. We're going to head down to Radio Row. We're going to try and hook up with Chase Sr. And hopefully we'll be bringing as much content to you as we can. Things have changed. Like we said, if you missed it at the top of the show, we've had to rearrange some things. We have a backup plan. We're initiating the backup plan, but stick with us. If you're new, please like and subscribe to the channel. I promise you, we're going to do everything we can. We'll have hopefully a ton of stuff from Media Night tonight. And stick with us. I promise we won't let you down this week. Levin, I appreciate you coming all the way out here at great personal expense.
My wife is very excited. She is and she isn't.
Yeah.
She's got a week alone with the kid, but at the same time, she knows what this means to me, because this was covering the Super Bowl. And I know we're not going to the game, but getting credentialed for the Super Bowl was something that as a kid was like my dream. So that's what this is for me. So that's why I'm willing to spend the money. Plus, I'm going to make it up. Downstairs late at night, I'll be making up what I spend anyways, right? That's how it works, right?
God, yeah. Everybody that comes to Vegas wins. I think that's why people come here.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and by that they actually meant the money that you spend in Vegas stays with Vegas.
Yeah, your money does not go home with you. But anyway, we'll do that. We're going to try and collaborate with as many 49ers content creators as we can.
As long as I get to meet Drew Brees, I'm good.
Hopefully that will happen on Thursday.
Like, my family is jealous of that one. Drew Brees is as close as you can get to God level in my house. Growing up West Lafayette, Indiana, where Purdue is, yeah, like that is the one for me.
All right. Well, we'll see. Keep it locked in here, everybody. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Sorry I couldn't put the comments up on the screen. Yeah. We're still working out the setup. The computer is too far away for me to reach with the mouse. I'm actually going to have to get up to stop the stream. We'll get it worked out.
I didn't think about that one. Huh?
No, I definitely didn't.
We talked about having the mouse here on the desk. He's like, there's a couple second delay. I'll be able to hit go live and sit down before it actually goes live. Yeah, we didn't think about ending, huh?
No. So I apologize. I did want this to look a little more professional, but like I said, we're working our way through it. But I promise we'll do the best we can for you. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.